I won't ask Joram because he will say something stupid. But yeah, sure. So the question is about the timeline of Activity 6 and the stuff we presented today. So we need to do a lot of documentation before we can publish something. So the Activity 6 engine code is all available on GitHub, so that's already there to check out, at least on the code level. And we hope to add the Activity app I just showed quite soon, so in a matter of weeks, I hope. And then do a beta version, a beta release, including the updated user guide and things like that. I hope before we go on holiday, and that's early August. So I hope somewhere in July we can share it with a proper release. Yeah. Yeah.
I have a question about the mini Activity 5 engine. Is it the current Activity 5 engine, or is it some new stuff built on it?
Yeah, it's the existing one. Yeah.
It is the existing one. Oh, I'm not projecting. Do you get into the little machine? Oh, maybe that's smarter. Oh, the question was, I don't know the exact words, but it came down to the mini engine, the V5 engine. Is that an exact copy of the latest release of 5? Let me show you what the workflow is for getting that in. So if you go into the codes, and let me just look that up. No. Almost there, I think. So we've got a small module called Activity 5 engine in Activity 6. So basically there's this, the way we do it is pretty simple. So we just take whenever we do an Activity 6 release, we copy the current state of Activity 5, basically. Then you see the steps that we go through to actually do this. And it looks a lot, but it comes down to, copy the source folder, and we rename the ordered activity package to ordered activity 5 to have, because you can't have the same class with the same package, right? We change something in the POM, we update the versions to the latest version, and then the one thing that, there's a package rename, remove the script so you don't create an A5 something by accident, and then the most important bit is at the bottom here, which is pretty much comes down to updating. That's two things. If you were smart, you would have saved those files already and then copied it over when you did the big 55 copy. If you didn't do that, like I did a couple of times, then you need to follow this line of thinking, which basically comes down to changing the mappings files, which is changing the package names there, because the Eclipse can't see that in that XML that it changes the packages for some reason, and change small queries, basically small queries that it inserts hard-coded, where is this insert hard-coded Activity 5, that's a sticker, the tag we put on it, and that is pretty much it. So it's really when we do an Activity 6 release, we take the state of Activity 5 and use that as the mini engine. So there's nothing special going on at that point. It's really a copy of the Activity 5 engine with a few small tweaks to make it work together with Activity 6. But nothing logically or code-wise, there's no changes at all. Yes, Morten? You have a whole book of questions. Only one.
So, with this agenda, right?
Yeah.
When I have a parallel gateway,
yeah.
and after that there is...
yes, good question. I know what's coming, but go ahead, yeah.
Yes, so there is email sending task and
right.
one branch and
right.
email sending task and
yeah.
another one. And there are two user tasks.
Right.
So currently both emails will be sent, and after that one user
right.
task will fail.
Right.
So
yes, so basically that's, let me take a step back first. The way the agenda works indeed, so in Activity 5, when you execute, you will actually in parallel gateway will actually execute the first branch of the gateway first before going to the second branch. With the centralized agenda, because you've got the operations putting it on the self, you will actually switch constantly. So you'll actually, first bit of the first branch, first bit of the second branch, and then switch back in between. So to come back to your question, the email will be sent also in that way. Now, I remember that in the forum we did a post about that email, putting it in the database, and actually one of the ideas I think I had also on my slide is to think more about making non-transactional things transactional. And the thing you said on the forum, right, is putting your email sending somewhere in the database and then afterwards sending it. And I thought that was a smart thing that we should invest in and look in, I think, because that's to make that more transactional than it is now. I think that's a good solution.
I have another proposal, right?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
So with this agenda, right?
Yeah.
Because currently this agenda is implemented in this way.
Yeah.
Would it be possible to make agenda pluggable?
Sure.
So in that case, I can implement the behavior which I want,
Right.
and I can make private.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah. Yeah.
So on
Yeah.
and so on.
Yeah. If the agenda is pluggable, which if it's not, we should make it pluggable because that's always the default that we make things. Yeah, I see what you mean. You could put your own operation in there, which is done, by at the very end when you're sure that everything else has passed by. That's actually another smart. Another idea I had there was actually using the transaction listeners. So group all the logic in memory to, for example, sending an email, keep that in memory until the transaction commit actually is said. Okay, we are ready to commit, and then do the emailing, for example. That was another idea I had, but yeah.
Yes, but in that case, this email sending is optional because
True.
this email sending
True.
fails,
Yeah.
right? This transaction
Yeah,
is
yeah, that's true. That's true. So, I mean, let's discuss it further online or tonight. Or I thought it was a good idea on the forum. We should look into it more because a lot of people have that problem. That was item 1 of the book.
Yes. So I will ask the next one.
Yes, after the site, I'll just say.
So with can I?
No, go ahead. Yeah.
So with this dynamic process definition,
Mhm.
right? When I will change something in process definition,
Yeah.
after that, this history
Mhm.
refers to
No.
this.
Yeah, that's a good question. Implementation thing we haven't worked it out yet, but the way we could do it is that when you go into a dynamic process definition, yes. They can't hear, but it was a very technical question. You wouldn't understand it anyway. Oh, for the people there, obviously. Yeah. So he was asking that. Maybe you should just ask it yourself.
Okay, so when we have we will change the process definition dynamically, right? And we still have some history written, and this history is referencing this dynamic process definition. So we cannot believe that this audit trail, which is written in the history, is still valid, right?
Yep.
So the audit trail, which is really important thing in processes in banks and in other in other customers. So we cannot believe that history is saying the truth, and we cannot take it as an audit trail. The only audit trail there is this event log. Okay?
So the way Taz doesn't say it on something because I'm just thinking out of my state of my head now. So the way I think that should work is that when you create a new dynamic process definition or process instance for that matter, I think that needs to be stored also. It needs to be stored in the database at least as a process definition that is kind of special. Not as a normal process definition. It shouldn't show up, with regular queries and like that. But at least you should store the structure you have created. Because if you sometimes later would want to see, hey, I did that, how did it look, and you might want to get the structure back. So the way I see that working is that when you create a dynamic process definition, it actually creates a new entry, kind of child-parent relation with the previous one, seeing where it was born from, and then you store that structure in there. Then you can link all the history with the correct data. There is no other way around that. Well, maybe in this code you can do everything, of course, with a lot of time and money, but that's the way I saw it working, that actually you would, because you don't want to lose that information there, and if you just have random, because if you only have events, you need to have something to correlate that data with, right? I mean, just hear an event that says this happened doesn't mean anything without actually seeing the structure. So I think we need to think in that direction. That's all, in the bucket of, not dreams, but half-baked ideas. Tim? Yeah, sure.
So there's a couple of times we've talked about the order that sequence flows are executed.
Yep.
So does that mean that we'll now respect the incoming outgoing flows in particular order?
No. That's a good question, actually. You want to take it? You're not going to say no, you're going to say yes.
No, so we currently don't export the incoming, outgoing elements, but we take the order in the BPMN XML. But it's definitely something we can easily add, because yeah, it's just 5 minutes of work basically.
But I mean, the order still matters there, right? I mean, if you have them in that list of incoming sequence of outcoming, it's still a defined order in XML, right?
No, but then you can do it locally. So if you, so
Yeah, I know
but
what you mean,
would it? Are you referring to something where you reuse a sequence flow for multiple elements? Because it's basically.
I'm talking about the actual incoming and outgoing elements in the
Yeah, but
This version 5 doesn't write it.
yeah.
And so.
But you are more talking about it from a BPMN spec level than from a functionality point of view.
Well, yes and no. If I want to, there could be reasons why it's important that this flow executes first, if they're not mutually exclusive.
No, so we do. So the thing I showed in the web modeler is where you can define the order. That is defining the order. It gets written in the BPMN XML. It just isn't included in the as incoming and outgoing, but it does define the order. It's get written to in the BPMN XML. So it will do the same thing technically, but. Yeah, so but adding these elements when we export something to BPMN XML is something we can, it would be easy to do.
So it's reduced to just an interoperability problem.
Yeah, so that's a good thing. Yeah.
I just wonder if it really does it have runtime implications also in the spec, let's say, or is it just more convenient? I mean, if the order is done in the specification, does it also mandate that you execute it in that specific order? Yeah, okay. I know I should look at it. If it have runtime implications, then yeah. I was always.
It sounds like the functionality is there.
Yeah, sure. No, it's.
Only if you want to take the process.
Yeah.
Somebody's tool.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, okay, no. I just never saw the use case for duplicating that information. That's probably. But for interchange, yeah, I can definitely see. Now I can see that battle going on at least. Yeah. No, it's good. Good. But do remind us of that. You know, that's something that might slip through our minds very easily. Yeah, indeed. Indeed. Yes?
I've got a question. If you have like change management and so on, but you have versioning, and now the problem is if you deploy this to repository manager, you have no possibility to define an external version.
What do you mean?
Like you have the process definition ID and so on are generated, so like I know there is no possibility to say I have this process deployment in version XY where the version is defined from an external source. So I can say I would like to start my process definition in version XY.
Yeah.
So you are talking about the versioning of process definitions, but are you talking about starting a process instance in a specific process definition version, or are you talking about something else?
The problem is you could say you have the process definition ID from Activiti, but we have like change management where I say a release XY, and you would like to work with this external version because the internal version doesn't say us.
Oh.
Yeah. So you would like to use some external versioning identifier basically for your process definition.
Or field on the repository for that.
So we have our own versioning system inside Activiti, and I think we would like to keep it. But it could we could definitely add some metadata field that you can fill when you deploy a new process definition, that you can say this identifier, version identifier, is this value. That's something, that would basically mean adding a column to the process definition table, I think it makes sense if you have this external versioning thing.
There is a category you could misuse for that.
Yeah, there's category.
You could misuse that.
Momentarily misuse the name of the deployment.
You could misuse the category.
Category is, I think, a more cleaner way because it isn't used anywhere else, and name is used sometimes, I think. But category would be a good field for it as well. Yeah, and you can query on it. Yeah.
I just mean that's already in there now, the category field. That's what I
Yeah.
mean. That's.
Yeah.
I mean, we should add it.
Yeah. So
we have come across this several times, and now we store it somewhere in the database.
yeah.
Not directly in the
So yeah.
like variables.
Yeah. So the question is about being able to add any metadata field to a process definition as you would like. What would be possible right now is to use extension elements in the BPMN model, where you can just define anything you would like. And in Activity 6, and that's also true, almost the same in Activity 5, it's really easy to retrieve a BPMN model from a process definition ID, and then you can read any extension element from there. So that could be another way to do that. Yeah, so these BPMN models are cached. So yeah, so from that respect, I think it's fine if you don't have millions of process definitions, then it becomes a bit of a bottleneck. But yeah, that could be a way to do it right now. Adding some database table where you can just fill in any stuff with a process definition is something we can look into if there are more people interested. But I think the BPMN extension elements could be used for it as well, maybe. Yeah. Sweet.
I think my quota is reset, so I can ask.
One question per 15 minutes. So.
Okay, so in Activity version 5, when we had an asynchronous task, because it was on the stack, so sometimes we get this optimized exception or something. So I assume that maybe in the new version, because they are not in the call stack, maybe we cannot expect that the same exception.
Right.
So are you talking about optimistic lock exceptions, or?
Yes.
Yeah. So in Activity 5 you get an optimistic lock exceptions in some occasions where you would not expect it. And we actually looked into it when we refactored the stuff for Activity 6, and we try to reduce that as much as possible, because in some cases the optimistic lock exception didn't make any sense, and it was sometimes related to deleting something, and why throw an optimistic lock exception if you want to delete something. So it is the amount of cases where we throw it is reduced. If it's also if it's not occurring in your specific example, yeah, we have to find out. But yeah, we try to only throw it now when it's really an optimistic lock exception.
But right now, the async task still does run on the same thread. Is that so?
The async task is not run on the same thread, so there's a thread pool. A separate thread pool to execute asynchronous tasks. So, but that was actually also the case in Activity 5. So it's a different thread where they run on. But yeah, if you have an example we can test on Activity 6, yeah, then it would be good. Yeah.
I still have a doubt about what you have said about Entity Manager API, I think. Let's imagine I would like to store my history into Elasticsearch, on my database structure into Neo4j.
Yep.
Do I just have to provide some new implementation of this API on this ticket?
Yep.
And I can split different API for history on...
Yeah, so you could override the historic entity manager, and so to repeat it. So the question is about the entity managers and how to override it to make it work with Elasticsearch or Neo4j or something else, and make it only work for historic data, for example. So you could override only those specific entity managers and implement those to go to Elasticsearch or something else. And that would actually make the most sense as well, because mapping our current data structure one-to-one to Neo4j, for example, with executions identity links and files and things like that, I don't think that will map that well one-on-one. So you might want to do some additional things. But for history, that's definitely possible. Yeah. Not right now, but I'm trying to get there. Yeah. So we have to do some work. We still have to do some work to clean up everything and make the whole entity manager thing quite clean. But for the history thing, that's already quite clean. So.
Yeah, the tricky part is there. Of course, once you do that, you kind of lose transactionality, right? So that's a trade-off you must.
But for history, typically, I don't want transaction. I want to store everything.
But often, like financial institutions, it's bad that you would lose, you know, if your queue goes down or something and you would lose that. But typically, for history, just pump it over, and if that's fine. Yeah, it's just that sometimes you don't want to lose that information. Then it gets tricky, of course, if you pump it into MongoDB or Elasticsearch, because you don't have real transactions, and then you can start doing fun stuff like with JMS and XA transactions and all that stuff. But that's homework, let's say. But do keep that in mind when you do that, because that's the reason why we don't do it by default. Because it could scare some people that there might be data loss if they're not thinking about it properly.
Sorry, but just wanted to add that I think there is definitely a transaction issue by default, because if the process gets rollbacked, if you have overwritten these historic entity manager stuff, then that data is already written to Elasticsearch because it's a different transaction. So if a rollback happens, you never will notice it. So the data is still there in Elasticsearch, which is actually not correct. So that is definitely something with transactions to solve, I think.
Transactions.
Yeah. We have solved it with the JTA transactions. We looked in some, I don't remember the name, is the transaction synchronized. You can synchronize the transaction with the JTA, and you know when the transaction is committed or rollback.
Right, that's what I was thinking. You kind of want that event when it happens, you want to put that into the...
Exactly.
So that's indeed good. That's the way I was thinking also in my head to solve it. You would need to get an event when in the manager, let's say, of the manager that keeps all that stuff, that you put it into your NoSQL database. You have to keep it in memory until that event comes from your JDK transaction synchronize, or the regular one. You can also have it in the normal JDK, like a transaction synchronization, and get an event when that actually happens, and then flush whatever you kept in memory to your NoSQL database, because then you know that the other stuff actually went through. So but we should provide a hook point for that. That's clear.
Yeah.
And I'll note it down here.
Question about the variables management. If I'm not mistaken, at the moment in Activiti you can reference the literal preserve and literal like the variable, very dynamic. But in some cases you might wanna, let's say, declare it in a more type-safe manner, or at least declare that this is variable which is available in certain scope, and during the maintenance, if you remove the variable but it's still referenced from somewhere, you might have an exception during deploy, or something like that, which I would say better and safer for maintenance of the workflows.
So the question is about.
It's just an idea.
Yeah. So the idea is about having more options to query on variables and have it scoped, have it to know to have the possibility to define the scope where the query should search on and things like that. Is that what you?
No. You have a gateway, and you have a conditional sequence where you ask variable whether you reference the variable and where you calculate your conditional whether you go this sequence or not. And you can reference to a variable which is not defined. Well, I would like to have, let's say, a variable which is defined in a type-safe manner, and if my workflow contains a reference to undefined variable, that it's giving me an exception during the publication, so I know my workflow is valid.
Okay, so you are more talking about some more static definition of all the variables you that are available together with the process definition.
It might be another kind of variable to define, for.
So one of the things we offer is data objects. So that we provide a way to define data objects on a process definition level and on a sub-process scope level, and you can. So you know those variables are always available within the scope these are defined in. So that's the way that's already there, but we don't directly support it. These are just treated as normal variables basically, and you have to still reference them with an expression. They have an identifier, and you can just reference them. But you can define data objects on a process definition level and on a sub-process level.
But they're not used as safety.
Well, so if you have defined them, those get initialized. So
yeah, I mean, I think he was also talking about if you want to remove them or someone have accident, then they will be check.
There more remains.
Yeah. I don't have a good answer ready. Do you have something to add, Joram?
I think if you define statically,
if you define statically, you can always, before the remove, check if it matches your static definition. It's just that I wonder if developers will go through the effort of defining always, that extra safety net. That's my only thing that, good developers are typically lazy developers. So I see the point. I mean, I see the point why you would want to have it. When you remove, you want to check it. I just wonder about if people actually, use it a lot, because it would work if the tooling is. I mean, if you would have to manually do it, it would never work. So the tooling needs to allow it very easily to do, because it's not easy. People are not going to bother with defining all these little entries once in, for if you got 20 process variables, I won't be typing them all for my safety purpose. I would just assume that my coding is perfect and not make mistakes.
Well, we have some problems, let's say.
Yeah, so what's the use case when would you come into that problem that your variable is actually removed?
Well, it's actually a little bit worse. We have some data coming from the underlying application, which we initialize with variables, and then we use those variables. For example, with this data, it is not coming.
All right, so it's more of a, I see what you mean.
I was wondering whether there is an approach to...
I see what you mean. I have to think about that. If there is an approach we could take that is also developer friendly, let's say, because that's my main concern. I see the use case, but I wonder about uptake if it's too hard to do. Right?
Yeah, so I think there's something there with data objects, but I think we need to discuss it in a bit more detail, maybe with some examples to think about a good solution. Yeah, Tim, do you have something to add to that? Or?
I was just going to say plus model data objects. I think there's a general point in the big game community that data objects are neglected because they're not necessarily obvious, but they really help with communication. I mean, if you look at the reason for BigNN, it's about aiding the communication between business users and tech users, and data objects really help that. Amazing business users that have not thought about data because you're struggling from that flow. And so there's a lot of extra benefit from using data objects.
Yeah, so I also think that data objects are the other approach to take, but then we should discuss it in more detail how it would solve your use case and how we should improve it in Activiti to make it work better. So if we could continue it later today, or if you could start a post on the forum and start some discussion there, would be great.
Steve?
So either we've answered all your questions or you're too shy. We're going to wrap up now if there's no more questions. I mean, if you've got any more questions now, then do ask them. Any final last question before? Go on then. Nick.
What's your most favourite feature that you've managed to bring in with Activity 6?
Oh, jeez. You first, and I can have some thinking.
No, I really like it that we are now working with clean BPMN model objects. So, and when you now look at the exclusive gateway behavior, for example, and you compare that to the Activity 5 implementation, it's really about an exclusive gateway instead of some really abstract activity in whole thing with properties set on it and some really strange if statements there and etc. So yeah, that's something I really like. Yeah.
Jeez, this is a very good question, a very hard one. There are many features, of course, because we wrote many of them ourselves, but I think mine is more philosophical, obviously. No, I think our team has grown and people have come and left, as you probably are aware of. And I think this is the first time, my history. I come from JPPM3, did a lot of consultancy in JPM3, then went to JPM4, and an Activity, right? And with all the stuff we learned, for me, this is the first time that I feel that this is something that has the mark of me and Tess on it, right? I mean, this is something where we know the ins and outs, and it was the same for Activity version 5, but we had different team members then. It was a different engine, and so mine is more philosophical. I think this is even, if it could be, even more my baby than the previous baby. I know you can't choose between children, but that's from a philosophical point of view, the way I feel about it. I'm pretty proud that we were able to do this after 5 years of doing that.
So that's not philosophical. It is really that we've been through so many generations of development with this. The 6th cycle is really the synthesis of that historical understanding of how these engines work and how the real world impinges on nice process definition world. So yeah, I think what Joran's trying to say is actually he feels this is the first time where he's got an engine which actually reflects in a very pure way what we've been seeing in reality over the last 5+ years. So
I'm sure I feel the same about version 7.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. Good question, thank you. So we're going to wrap up now. I hope this was useful to you. What we'll probably do is, to get your feedback on this, is send out something like SurveyMonkey or something like that, just get some feedback, because I think one of the things, because we haven't done this for quite a while, I know there'll be a bunch of people here that were looking for maybe more hardcore code stuff, and maybe some people that were slightly bemused by the amount of code stuff. So getting some feedback about what type of event will be useful for you. We'll try and make these at least annual. We'll also have to work out where we do these events. So we'll put out a survey. So we'd be really appreciative if you can respond to us and give us your thoughts on that, because that will help us next time around. The other thing to say is thank you to the Joran Test particularly for putting all the materials here. Like I say, there's community stuff which they do. I mean, we're also doing commercial stuff, and these guys put in ridiculous hours, out of work time to make sure that the community is actually moving forward as well. So, hugely appreciative of the effort they're putting in to keep the activity community going forward as it has. And on that note, what we plan to do now, for anyone that doesn't have to rush off, there is if you noticed on the way in, there is an Irish bar just below here. So we're going to head down there, and I'm sure you want to show your appreciation by buying these guys a beer down there. So if anyone wants to join us for a beer, please, we'll head down there, and any of the conversations that you do feel you can share publicly, you want to have over a pint or something like that, then please do join us. And there is no close time for that apart from when they kick us out of the bar. So while people are buying beers, then we'll keep going. So thanks very much for coming, and I really appreciate the distance some people have travelled to be here. Thanks very much for everyone that spoke. I would want to thank Christelle, who actually organised this, but she's hiding downstairs. So the person you saw, handing out badges on the way in, again, she works for Alfresco. She did this again out of the kindness of her heart because she's got other work things she should be doing. So on the way out, if you liked the event, like the venue, please thank her as well for arranging all of this. And yeah, just a final thank you to everyone for actually turning up and talking and contributing, and we'll be putting up as much of the material from today as we can on the .org site and making it available to people. So thank you very much.